The meeting will come to order. Jeff, do you have something to say?
A quorum is present. This is a bit of a unique situation. We don't have a chair and vice chair as of yet, but I'll take it from there until we get there. Mr. Floyd Kreider is here to lead us in prayer this morning, and after that, please remain standing for the pledge, and then we'll have an election of a chair and vice chair.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Reminded of a short story. A man gave a testimony, and his testimony was thank God for the dash. And folks in the congregation didn't know what that meant and asked him to explain. He said, when I said thank God for the dash, that means that if you go out South Chapman past Goodfellow, you'll come to Lawn Haven Cemetery, and out there are graves, and they have three things in common, regardless of whatever other flourishes are there, and that is they got a name, they got a date a person was born, and a date a person was carried out of here, and in between, you got that dash. And the dash represents your life, the time that you have on earth to do something for someone less fortunate than yourself, to get it right with God, and to be a blessing. So now I want to extend and ask a prayer for this commission to be a blessing continuously to this community. Let us look to the Lord. Father God, before we ask you for anything, we want to first thank you for what you've already blessed us with. Thank you for the rain. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for our life and a reasonable portion of health and strength. Thank you, for Heavenly Father, for being in our right mind, because somewhere there's somebody that doesn't know who they are or where they are. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for our nourishment, Father God, for there is someone who is hungry, probably not far from here. Lord, we thank you for all the things that most people just take for granted and are part of our everyday lives. And Lord, we thank you most of all for your sacrifice purchasing for us our salvation. Heavenly Father, we now come before your throne of grace and mercy, asking, Lord God, that you would shine your wisdom down upon these who are making decisions for our community. Let them get wisdom, and in all of their getting, get an understanding. Lord, move in their minds, thoughts, and words. Let them, Heavenly Father, come together, and let us realize that in a multitude of counsel there is safety. Lord, continuously bless them, Lord God, to keep in mind those things which they are committed to do, and to continue to bless our community. And we ask it in your Son's name. Amen and amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to
the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
The Planning Commission's bylaws specifically state that there'll be election at the beginning of the year of a chair or vice chair, or thereupon whenever there is no longer a chair or vice chair. So as a result of the recent new appointments, I'll give Ms. Jackson and Mr. Crisp a chance to briefly introduce themselves. And after that, it's at the discretion of the board to elect who the chair and vice chair are going to be. So I'll leave you to that, and I'll be the official minute taker.
I'm Terry Jackson. I am a realtor with Deersky & Deersky Realtors, and I'm also the president of the San Angelo Association of Realtors.
I'm Mark Crisp. I'm owner of Pioneer Termite and Pest Control. Lived here all my life, been in the pest control business all my life. It's a pleasure and a privilege to serve the city of San Angelo.
We ready for the motion?
I beg your pardon?
Are we ready for the motion?
Okay, let's see. I guess we need to elect a chairman and a vice chairman.
I'd like to nominate Darlene as the chairman and Bill as the vice chairman.
I'll second the motion if that's in the motion.
All in favor?
Yeah, all in favor?
That's right, let's just
Yeah,
all-
well, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Aye.
If you'd
We
assume,
have a chairman now.
if you'd assume those seats, the chairperson in the middle and Mr. Wynn right where you're at, move your things down. But
Okay, I'm supposed to sit here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
as long as we've got a free moment while we're shuffling, public information just wants to remind us that we are recording the meeting, so please keep your microphone on and keep it, near to your face so they can pick it up for the recording.
I guess we'll continue the meeting. First of all, I appreciate the honor and privilege of serving as your chairman, and bear with me. We'll get through it. Okay. As a courtesy to those in attendance, please place your phone on silent or vibrate. We've done the call to order the elections. We're going to the consent agenda. Anybody, any public comments on the consent agenda? Please state your name.
Good morning, Herb Hooker with SKG Engineering, and we request that item C on the consent agenda be pulled for discussion.
We've got all the subdivisions on regular.
Do what?
All the subdivisions are on regular. They're all requesting variances, so we'll have regular discussion for them.
Okay.
Just the minutes are on consent.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make that motion.
A second? Okay, a motion's made and a second by Valerie. All in favor, please note by your raising your hand. Okay, motion approved. I don't even know where we're at. Okay. Jeff, who's got the next one? Okay, request for approval of subdivisions for request for variance from subdivision ordinance regulations.
Good morning, members of the Planning Commission. Jeff Hintz, Interim Senior Planner. This is a request for a subdivision with a variance. This is the Bruckner Edition, Block A, Lot 1, replat of the Fairview Edition, Block 60. This is a request to replat in a light manufacturing district with a variance to create a double frontage lot at 829 North Bell Street and 1503 Beacon Street, bounded by Beacon Street to the north, North Bell to the east, and Highway 67 to the south. This property occupies the Fairview Edition, Block 60, lots 5 to 6, and lots 9 through 13. Notifications were not required for this particular request. This is a photo, aerial photo of the subject property. You can see it is an existing truck sales shop. They're looking to combine the middle portions of their lots, leaving 14 and 9 or 14 and 8 just on their own as standalone lots, and the highlighted lots all into one lot. In a configuration that will look like this, and as you can see, it's going to front onto the highway as well as onto Beacon Street. The subdivision ordinance for the city discourages and prohibits the creation of double frontage lots without a variance from this board, which is why it's here for you today. In terms of looking at this, the criteria for granting a variance from subdivision regulations, the granting of the variance is not detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to other properties. The conditions with the request are based, they're unique to the property with the variance is sought and are not applicable to other properties. Because of the physical or particular surrounding shape or topographical conditions of the subject property, a hardship to the owner would result as distinguished from a mere inconvenience from having to follow the regulations, and the variance will not in any significant way vary the provisions of applicable ordinances. Taking a look at this request, no new frontage was created. All those lots already fronted onto Beacon Street and onto the highway frontage road. Agglomeration of existing lots, which were not double frontage to start with, but through that we'd found that really it's penalizing the owner of this particular lots by that regulation. He's not creating that, he's just combining a lot of lots that were platted separately. We have found it does not vary significantly from the subdivision ordinance. It's not going to be a corner double frontage lot. It's frontages that already exist on 2 different streets. So we would recommend that you approve the subdivision with that variance, with these conditions along with it. These are the standard ones you'll find on subdivisions, that there's no delinquent taxes on the property being subdivided, and then a couple of corrections to the plat document itself. And with that, though, if there's any questions, I'll try to address those.
Any questions from the commission?
Thank you.
First, public comment on this particular item? Okay, no. Pardon me?
Anyone for it or anyone against?
Anyone for or against this? Okay, any questions by the commission? Okay, I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion, have a second?
I second.
Second, all in favor?
With
Sure.
exceptions, right? Is that-
Right,
Yes.
as presented.
As presented, I apologize.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion carries. Okay, next one is the final plat, Durand subdivision, section 1 with variance request from pavement improvements as required in chapter 10, section 3A2 of the subdivision ordinance, presented by Mr. Boyd.
Thank you so much. This request is an approval from a 7.5 foot variance from Chapter 10, Section 3 of the subdivision ordinance, which requires a 50-foot minimum pavement width for collector streets to allow for no pavement requirement along Woodruff Street and Arrow Street on the following property: an unaddressed 1.320 acre tract located approximately 20 feet west and 170 feet north at the intersection of Woodruff Street and Arrow Street, more specifically occupying the H. Oakler's Survey 0165, Abstract 1757 in Southeast Angelo. No notifications were required with this request. Here's the subject property, our subject site here. It's located just north of the area of the base there. Here's the zoning map, and it shows that the properties, the newly created proposed properties, are zone RS1, single family housing, residential, I'm sorry. In the aerial, you can see that the lots are serve as a vacant open space here. And here's the plat that is proposed. So there's a request to subdivide one single lot into 5 separate lots. Now, these lots do meet all the minimum requirements as far as, the dimension and area for RS1 zone. The issue and what the reason why the variance was requested is that although the right-of-way width is met, the minimum right-of-way for Collector Street is 80 feet across and meets that. Both streets do not meet the pavement width along Era and Woodruff Street. If this request is not approved, then the proponent would have to increase the pavement or extend the pavement by 7 feet along either side, along Era Street and Woodruff Street. Staff is recommending approval of both the subdivision request and the variance. As you can see with this aerial, this is Era Street, and this is roughly half-mile distance across, and this is Woodruff Street. They're both, identified as collector streets in our city's thoroughfare plan. The reasons why we are recommending approval and the variance criteria stays the same as the previous request is that many of the properties along the street have been developed, and this area serves as an existing residential community here. And so we feel that, that would create an unnecessary hardship for the proponents of this request. In addition, if you see how the lot is positioned, it's not a corner lot, and so requiring for pavement extension along the affected areas would create fragmentations in the street pavement, which we also feel is unnecessary. And if this request is approved, this request would not detrimentally affect public safety in any way. And we feel that how the request is presented, approval of both requests represents logical and orderly development for the area. The proposed conditions, the very first ones, what we place on every subdivision request, that submittal of no delinquent taxes. There's no delinquent taxes for the property, and the other conditions. And if you have any questions, I can answer those at this time.
Any questions by the commission? No. Okay. Anyone wish to speak for? Any public comment against? Or y'all are easy today. Okay, I need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept it.
Okay.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All approve, raising your hand. Did you? Okay. Okay. All right, it is approved unanimously. Okay, C, final plat, Family Star Edition, Section 1 with variance request from pavement improvements is required in Chapter 10, Section 3A.2, and from right-of-way dedication is required in Chapter 10, Section 3A.1 of the subdivision ordinance. Mr. Boyd.
Yes, ma'am. This request is for approval of a 7-foot variance from Chapter 10, Section 3 of the subdivision ordinance, which requires a 60-foot minimum pavement width for arterial streets to allow for no pavement requirement along North Bell Street, and a request for approval of a 5-foot variance from Chapter 10, Section 3 of the subdivision ordinance, which requires a 80-foot minimum right-of-way width for arterial streets to allow for no public dedication along North Bell Street on the following properties: 9228 and 1002 North Bell Street, located approximately 30 feet southeast of the intersection of North Bell Street and Hughes Street, more specifically occupying a 0.9527 acre tract out of the G. Shobitz Survey 326, abstract number 1854 in Northern San Angelo. Once again, no notifications were required with this request. The subject property here is located along North Bell Street, just north of the Houston Hart Expressway. As you can see, there's Magnolia Street to the south here. The property is zoned for light manufacturing. And as you can see, the configuration of the street here, we have Magnolia that intersects with North Bell. And then we have Hughes Street, which is identified as a collector street, intersects here directly across from the subject property along North Bell Street. With the area is slightly outdated. These structures that is seen here no longer exist. It's open, vacant tracts covered mainly by compacted dirt and grassy surface there. And so what the request is to combine to industrialize into one single tract. It measures roughly 200 feet wide and 416 feet across there. It meets the minimum lot size requirements per the zoning ordinance and meets all applicable subdivision ordinance requirements. The issue here is the lot, it does not, it abuts North Bell Street, which is an unapproved street. It's identified as an arterial street, which requires a minimum 64 pavement width, 64-foot pavement width. And so it's shy there, and it also does not meet the minimum right-of-way width. And we did take some pictures of this request because there are issues with the traffic circulation along the street, the segment of the street here. So looking north along North Bell Street, you could gauge the pavement width and the traffic that occurs on the site. And across here is looking east at the subject property. Mostly just open space. You see some trees in the background there, as well as a cell phone tower. And this is looking directly north of the subject property. And here's another aerial depicting what the city thoroughfare plan represents. It shows the red as representing Arterial Street and then Hughes Street, which is identified as a collector. We do recommend approval of the subdivision request, but we do recommend denial of the variance request for the variance from the minimum pavement and right-of-way width. And the reasons why we do recommend denial of those requests because just because if you look at the pavement width in this area, it does not meet it, and whenever a subdivision request is made, the properties that are intended to subdivide, they have to improve half of what's required. So in this case, a pavement width of 7 feet is required extended and along the property, as well as a right-of-way dedication of 5 feet there. As you can see, the vision plan, the thoroughfare plan does call for industrial. There is a highly trafficked area, what makes the situation a little bit unique in this situation, and the reason why we recommended a denial request because this intersection between Hughes Street, which is a busy street, and North Bell Street is unsignalized. There's no traffic signals at this intersection, as well as the local streets that also intersects. We have large vehicles, trucks that, big rig trucks that service the industrial properties in and around the site. And so it does create instances where there are backlogs and congestion points at the intersections. The big rigs attempting to turn onto Hughes Street, for example, it creates a bottleneck for traffic congestion in the area. And with this situation of Hughes Street being directly across from the subject properties, there's a lot of instances of traffic congestion. This street, North Bell, also serves as a gateway into the city for freight movement. And so you do have those big rigs that come through the area, which causes those bottlenecks. We feel that even if the street is not entirely improved, North Bell Street, at least in that area, given the additional space needed, the intersection between Hughes Street and North Bell can be improved to improve circulation along the 2 streets there. So those are basically the reasons why we're recommending denial of that request. The variance criteria stated in the previous presentation, and these are the proposed conditions. And if you have any questions, I can answer those at this time.
I have one question. Have you researched or looked into the fact of a possibility of a signal light going into that area?
We have not looked into that, but that could most certainly be a possible solution to the issues there.
Kevin, better explain to me, if we do not approve the variances, what exactly they're going to have to do to meet the requirements? Are they going to have to widen the road there?
Yes, they will have to publicly dedicate 5 feet to the city for potential street improvements or, infrastructure improvements, as well as 7.5 feet of pavement width. They will have to construct out of their own expense there.
Any other questions?
Can you go back to the picture again?
Okay.
Because I'm struggling with the street itself.
Mhm.
So if they do the 7.5-foot pavement, is that not going to, what about the ones next door? Would this not be the same as the previous case?
It'll be just one lot.
It would be that just one lot. These 2 lots are proposed to be combined, and so
Right.
the pavement requirement will be from the 200-foot roughly
Okay.
distance there.
Okay.
And so essentially they're going to create a bow in the street?
Yes, essentially that's what it would create. It would widen along those points in which the property fronts the street.
And please make sense of that for me.
Well, in a general perspective, whenever properties are subdivided or they go through the subdivision process, they have to make these expansions of the street or dedication of land. And in this case, since these individuals are going through that request, they are required to improve the street. Several properties along the street have not been subdivided, or they're still survey tracts. And so whenever they go to subdivide the lots, to place another building or what have you, they will also have to dedicate portions of land and or improve the street.
Well, I mean, I can see dedicating a certain amount of space for future improvements, but it doesn't make sense to me to put a bow in the street like that. I mean, that sounds more like a traffic danger to me than leaving it the way it is.
It's gonna look like a parking space.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, temporarily, but as time progresses and more development happens, and other properties go for the subdivision.
But now you're recommending, with conditions, denying the variances. In other words, denying that would be a variance to make the, all right, if we accept this with your recommendations.
Right.
They would not have to widen the street.
Well, since we're recommending denial of the request, they will have
They
to.
would have to.
Right.
Will have to meet the requirements.
That's what they requested, but they're recommending denial.
Just in terms of, how streets get widened, the subdivision process is one way. If you're, kind of debating what you'd like to do, when you get to that point, bear in mind the only other way that a street will get improved is if city council allocates funds to it to do more of Bell Street at a time. So if you're kicking around the variances and maybe want to, think the pavement part is silly right now, I would urge you to have them dedicate the property, but not improve it. That way, if there's ever funds in the capital improvements fund later through council, that the right-of-way is at least there to be improved fully. And if you don't want them to make the pavement, to go that route, if that's the way you'd like to go.
That would make more sense.
I would prefer it to go that
That would
direction.
make more sense.
Okay.
Any other questions for planning board? Okay, thank you. Anyone who would like to speak for?
Good morning. Herb Hooker with SKG Engineering, representing Dr. Turner on this request. And I think y'all essentially with the last comments got the gist of what we're asking for here. We don't mind the 5-foot dedication of right-of-way, understanding that that's not only for pavement, but also for utilities, streetlights, all that stuff. One thing I would like to mention, we did a subdivision, or there was a subdivision done right here. The property we're looking at is these 2 pieces. We did this one in 2006, and operating under the same master thoroughfare plan at that time, the city didn't consider that a variance either from the right-of-way or the pavement width requirements for the functional classification of the roadway. That wasn't processed as a variance request at all. Back in 1923, Bell Street was originally 50-foot right-of-way. Back in 1923, the County Commissioners Court actually acquired an additional 20-foot of right-of-way on the west side of Bell Street, both north and south of Hughes in here and down in here. And I'm thinking that's when the street was widened. As you know, that's always been kind of a major corridor for the agricultural traffic with producers up there and everything. So what we've ended up with is 50 foot of pavement, but the edge of the pavement on the east side is only about 5 foot away from the property line, which also lends us to go ahead and give 5 foot of right of way, which doesn't hurt at this time. We think one of the solutions for widening that street might be on the west side, where they essentially have 16 foot between the edge of the pavement and the right-of-way line right now. So hopefully you can understand our request for not going through with the pavement widening, which, as you suggested, would look like a parking area where you came back in and then went back out, which could be very dangerous when you get, high speed, 40 mile an hour traffic running through that area. I'd be happy to answer any questions on the pavement widening, the request for variance from the pavement widening.
Yeah.
Couple of other things we'd like to possibly get modified on the proposed conditions. Under proposed condition number 3, number 6, where it's talking about installation of the sewer mains. We've already looked at that area. According to the city maps for their gravity sewer lines and everything, we're over 400 feet from getting in the gravity sewer line, so we'd just like it recognized that it will be a septic tank installation on that property, as opposed to, and it kind of says that in the last paragraph, if a gravity main is not feasible, then this requirement shall be waived and a septic system may be used. If we could just throw out the rest of that paragraph and just keep that last sentence in there, that'd be great. As far as the water and sewer service line requirement, there's actually an existing water meter that's hooked up at that location. And also, this is a commercial facility, and typically those requirements aren't made on commercial facilities like they would be on a residential, because until you get your final plans in place, you don't know exactly where you need your sewer main going in or your water main, and in this case a water main, and we've already got it and we've taken care of the sewer line, so we'd like to get that one thrown out. And I believe that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Once again, which ones would you like to have thrown out?
Actually 6, I'd just like to have it modified and say a septic system may be used.
And say a what? Septic system may be used.
Right, instead of, we'd be over 400 feet away from tying into a gravity sewer system, and that would also involve getting easements across private property and probably some grade challenges heading off to the northeast where the actual gravity system is. And that meets the city requirements for maximum length away from a gravity system and having a tie-in in conjunction with the subdivision process.
And there is plenty of room for lateral lines, et cetera.
Yeah, we've got 1.9 acres on the whole track, and even with the drive-ins, the parking areas and the building, there's going to be quite a bit of room on the very east end at the back where they've left the mesquite trees. I don't know if you had a chance to go by there and look at the location. So, and then if we could just get 7 taken out, and obviously that's going to be taken care of in the building permitting process.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any other public comment for? Mr. Turner?
Good morning. I'm Dr. Tim Turner and the owner of the property. I would encourage you to follow the suggestions of SKG. We've researched this project. And you had a good question about the bowing of the road. Yes, and I do agree that Bell does need some attention and a light. would probably be helpful there. I have given a suggestion on a route that these sand trucks could take that y'all or somebody else might pursue. I watched those trucks in and out yesterday. There is an alternate route that they don't have to go down Bell Street. Would save them a little time and one light, and I have given that to staff to share with y'all. Again, I appreciate y'all taking consideration of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment for? Any against? We'll look at this real quick.
Staff, is there any concerns with the modification of the conditions that he requested?
Would you pass that back to me?
No one from Water Utility is here to speak to the sewer mains. I wouldn't feel comfortable speaking on their behalf. The way the condition is worded, that if the sewer system isn't possible, that the septic tank be allowed, so they're gonna get what they're seeking in that instance. So I would urge you to keep that condition the way you'd like to. The one about extending sewer mains to each lot, you could certainly waive that. Mr. Hooker is correct. It will be addressed during site plan review as well. It's more of an issue for the residential subdivisions that a service be provided to each one. It's less of a concern in commercial or industrial subdivisions, so that one would be fine. But I would just exercise some caution in terms of waiving the sewer one, because there's no one here that's able to speak for Water Utilities comfortably in the way that it's worded. They could use a septic system if Water Utilities deems it to be infeasible, but I'd urge you to let them make that call as the professional engineers and not us.
So we can leave that one as it reads and then let them make that determination.
Yeah, that's definitely something I think the engineers and Water Utilities should work out with SKG in terms of if it's possible or not.
But taking out 7 regarding installation of water and sewer services.
Each lot, yeah, that'd be required anyway, and they've already got one, and it'll be addressed during site review, so that one wouldn't necessarily affect anything with the subdivision.
I know this may be repetitive, but I have to ask, because I couldn't understand. Are you saying
Mr.
leave
Wynn.
number 6? Are you saying leave number 6 alone?
That's what we would urge you to do. It's worded in a way that they'll get a septic tank if a gravity sewer main isn't possible. I'm just urging you to let Water Utilities make that call and not us.
If you want to leave number 6, that's okay. We're confident that further review and consultation with water and sewer, we're good on that one.
Okay.
I hear you.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve with the exception of condition number 7.
And with the variance, is that correct?
I'm sorry.
With the variance?
With the variance to dedicate but not require the improvements.
Okay. I second that.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. Okay,
Okay.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please show your hands. Any opposed? Motion carries. Huh? Oh, Ms. Jackson.
Terry.
Okay. Next is request for approval of variance from sign regulations.
Good morning, I'm Roxanne Johnston, a planner. Pardon me for a second. Okay, we have a request for a variance from the maximum 64 square foot variance allowable for sign area as allowed under section 12.604.2A of the sign ordinance for non-residential uses in residential zoning districts to permit an increase in 11 square feet to total 75 square feet, and a request for a variance from the maximum 8-foot limitation on the height of freestanding signs allowed under section 12.604.2B of the sign ordinance for non-residential uses in residential zoning districts to permit the installation of a 25-foot high freestanding sign on the following property. 5237 South Bryant Boulevard, located approximately 1,640 feet northeast of the intersection of Ben Ficklin Road and West Loop 306 Frontage Road, South Bryant Boulevard Frontage Road, more specifically Parkview Acres, 3.0966 acres, blocks 9 and 10 in far south central San Angelo. No notifications were needed for this request. So your criteria for approval is a little bit different than subdivisions. You're looking at whether and the extent to which the proposal is compatible with the plans and policies, consistent with the zoning ordinance, compatible with the surrounding area, whether or not the changing conditions would require an amendment, and you would also look at the effects on natural environment, whether they meet community need, and whether or not they're consistent with development patterns. Here we have a shot taken far away. You can see that it kind of rests right between West Loop 306 and US Highway 87. I hope you all had a chance to run out there and check out the sign. Here we have a closer shot. It sits next to a cemetery. This area in here right now is Ranch and Estate. Again, here's an aerial. You can see there's quite, you can't see from the aerial, but the sign sits quite high up on this kind of a slope, and so we'll talk about the visibility of that later. And I wanted to throw in the vision plan. Usually we don't do that for sign variances, but in this case, because I'm going to talk about rezoning, I threw that in there as well because it does ask for commercial in that area. And then you can see right here, up to the north, we have a neighborhood center and the neighborhood surrounding that area. So here's the sign proposal. They're proposing to make it 25 feet high, 10 foot wide here. With the sign that is up on top is the existing sign, is what I've been told, and they're actually going to just put that on a higher pole is their proposition here. And there is the sign as it is today. So again, it's the subject sign looking west from South Bryant Boulevard Frontage Road, and south from South Bryant Boulevard Frontage Road. So you can see looking down what it looks like to the south. You see the freeway in the background there. The sign's very visible from this loop overpass. There's a northwest curvature along the frontage road, so we're looking north. That curve right there, if a person is traveling around this curve, it's kind of hard to see the sign as it is until you come around the bend there. And you can't hardly see it in this sign. You're looking west from Link Road at this vantage point. It's actually right up in these trees right up in here. So yeah, your options in considering this application as commissioners, you may approve the proposed sign variance as presented. You may modify the conditions of those believed to be more appropriate and approve the application, or deny the proposed sign variance altogether. So planning staff recommends denying the proposed sign variance request. And I'm going to go over the criteria of application. Normally we don't do that anymore, but we're going to because we have a couple of new board members. Also, we're on television, and it's good to point these things out from time to time to refresh everyone's memory. So there are special circumstances or conditions applying to the land, buildings, topography, vegetation, sign structures, or other matters on adjacent lots or within the adjacent right-of-way, which would substantially restrict the effectiveness of the sign in question, provided, however, that such special circumstances or conditions are unique to the particular business or enterprise to which the applicant desires to draw attention and do not apply generally to all businesses or enterprises, and that such special circumstances were not created by the applicant, and that the granting of the variance will be in general harmony with the purpose of this article and will not be materially detrimental to the adjacent property, to the adjacent neighborhood, to the persons residing or working in the vicinity, or to the public welfare in general, and that the variance applied for represents the minimum variance necessary in order to afford relief from the hardship, and that the variance applied for does not depart from the provisions of this article any more than is required to identify the applicant's business or use. Okay, so as I've pointed out, the property is zone R&E. Normally, we don't have a commercial enterprise in a ranch and estate, and churches are somewhat considered somewhat commercial in this sense, in that they do require a sign for advertising. So a rezone to commercial would allow the applicant more flexibility for development and signage depending on the zoning. In the past, in 2006, the Planning Commission, in June 19th, 2006, granted the sign that's there right now. During the discussion of the meeting, a rezone was discussed. It didn't happen. It was something that the applicants at the time understood was something that might even help with the flexibility for them to develop their land a little bit better without coming in front of a board whenever they wanted something done. So also in May of this year, the applicant, or the representative for the applicant, exchanged emails with one of our staff members, and at that time a rezone was also discussed, and planning staff recommended a rezone to some sort of commercial designation so that, again, the sign wouldn't have to come before you if, you know, it met their qualifications that I outlined in the report for, you know, how high you can have the sign and the face area, et cetera, et cetera. So, and again, we looked at the vision plan, and it calls for the area to be commercial. So with the property remaining ranch and estate, it's kind of like putting the cart before the horse here. It really should have been rezoned back then, but the sign as it is kind of represents a minimum hardship at the time. So the freestanding signage allowances in CN and CO zoning districts allow for 25 feet in height, which they're asking for right now, and it allows up to 250 square feet of the face area. So the only condition that staff has found that's changed since the sign was allowed originally was that the trees have grown up. So as I already discussed, SV 02602 allowed that variance for the existing one, et cetera. And I've discussed that. So the existing sign primarily is visible at lower speeds only along the frontage road and at higher speeds on the overpass to the south. The terrain is in the applicant's favor. It's still up higher on a hill, which kind of places it in an advantage to other places around San Angelo where everything is relatively flat. And so we don't feel as staff that this is a detriment or a hardship in itself. So I think the question would be, would a requested increase be effective also? This is something to consider. Raising the sign height and increasing the face area by adding an LED sign, which they propose to do, with scrolling letters may not be legible from either direction of the highway. And the sign may be visible, but not the lettering of the LED. And again, if you're traveling south on the main highway, you don't have an opportunity to necessarily get off because you just saw a sign and think, oh, I'm going to go over there. There really isn't enough time for a person to really think about where the exit would be. And the exit's there. The only way to access the property is the frontage road itself. And to get to the frontage road, you really have to travel quite a ways in either direction in order to get there. So that's just something to consider here. And, you know, again, a rezone, just something that we hammered a lot in our report that you've read, I'm sure. And anyway, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer whatever I can.
Were they not interested in a rezoning?
Honestly, I don't know. I just know that the option was given to them. And as a board, I believe they're board members. They get together and they requested the sign variance.
Let me ask you this: what would it hurt to be rezoned? What's the difference to them?
That's something that maybe you can ask the applicant, it would be a little bit more time, because rezoning can take 2.5 months, depending on when you get your application in, and it goes in front of city council.
What's the cost to them for an application?
It's up there close to $500 for a rezone with signage and everything.
So
Like
in this
$490 something.
In this request, they're not requesting a rezone.
They are not requesting a
They're just asking for
rezone.
sign
That's what
variance.
we would advise.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
There is another church on that same access road
Mhm.
that's north of there. Is it a commercial zoning?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So in my report, if you remember, there was another situation that was similar, except they were asking for a couple of different signs on the same piece of property. They were also some sort of residential rezoning. And let me look it up. That happened in 2011, I believe. And the situation there was that the Planning Commission recommended at the time that they do go ahead and get rezoned. They made that their recommendation. They did end up by allowing the signage because after it got rezoned and everything, then it was fine. So, and that was June 2011. It says SV 1104 was presented again, and planning staff recommended denial. But the Planning Commission directed staff to start the proceedings that would rezone the property to neighborhood commercial in this case. And the motion to approve the signs passed, and the commission asked city staff to initiate the zone change on the property. So that's how it was handled back a couple of years ago anyway.
So
Kind
no
of a
one ever
similar-
put in an application to be rezoned then?
They, not for the case that's before you today, but that case that I'm comparing it to, yes, they ended up by rezoning.
Okay.
The planning commission put the application in. Through the zoning ordinance, the planning manager and this commission are authorized to direct staff to investigate zone changes. So if that's the will of this commission, you may certainly do that. It'll say, if you do that, it'll say Coastal Planning Commission requesting zone change, yada yada. But it can be done that way if that's what you so choose to do.
So what you're saying is that we can request that and the applicant wouldn't have to?
Correct.
Okay. That makes sense.
I don't think there's any reason for us to do that.
And that would not cost the applicant any extra, right?
Correct. It would be at your discretion. There is no charge for those.
Cost Mr. Smith, right?
Yeah, we'll take it out of his check because
So-
it's higher than everyone
So
else's.
that would actually be a positive for us to do it instead of asking them to do it.
Yes.
Well, they've been directed twice that that's their most poignant option, and I don't think it's our place to recommend that and waste staff time. There's obviously a reason they're doing it, and, I don't see any reason for us to direct staff to do that.
Any other questions from Ms. Johnson?
I just have a concern that if we grant this in an R&M area, if that's not going to set some type of a precedence for other.
And that's something that was also, I think it was touched upon in the report as well. So I totally hear you on that. And it would. It would. And that's the reason why we have zoning and we have, specific standards for each zone. So, good point.
Bear in mind, too, whenever granting a variance, it's just the minimum action necessary to relieve, a hardship that may exist. And since they'd been approved for one in 2006, they're seeking probably more than what the minimum action is necessary at this time, given that they'd already been approved for a variance and the property hasn't changed aside from the trees, which, can certainly be trimmed.
And they could grow up again, and then even with, and this is something I didn't point out in my report, but, it could go up higher and higher, and the trees get higher and higher, and every time.
Oh, those trees don't get any higher.
Well, you never know.
They're weeds, they're
their
mosquitoes.
Are those trees on their property?
I
They have the
believe so.
ability to trim those?
From what I could see from the pictures and also my site visit.
Some of them look like they are. But
Okay.
they're
If
they're
there's no
mesquites.
other
They-
questions, then we'll go to public comment.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment for? Please state your name.
My name is Dot Richardell. I'm the president of the board at the Unitary Church of San Angelo. First of all, the sign that we're discussing was a kind of a miraculous drop in our lap. And we had no present plans to do this, but when this sign was generously donated, then we needed to put it up. Some of the things that Roxanne was talking about was, one, that the sign is not legible or visible. And our first thought is we would prefer to have visibility from as many points as we can, because the church itself sits back away from the property. And as far as legibility, we have at 45 miles an hour with the sign going, scrolling, it would be 11, that would be visible to a traveler for 11 seconds. And if you had just a simple phrase scrolled during that 11 seconds, then we feel like it would be visible. The other thing is that if it's visible from different places, the Ben Ficklin exit, yes, coming from the north, you might pass it before you see the sign. But there is an exit there that goes off to 306 and to Foster Road, which is just the next exit up from Ben Ficklin, in order to get to the church. And our argument is that if they see the sign in that area, they will find it and find a way to get there. She also talked about trimming the vegetation. Well, yes, we could probably do that, but it would amount to cutting off the tops of the trees, which would also require a professional contractor in order to get that done. We're not one of the larger churches in town, and we live on a tight budget. So this was not something that the board thought would be feasible for us at this time. Let's see. She also said that the property is supposedly at a high area already, and yes, it is, but because of the trees and because of the way the roads are in that area, it actually creates a hardship. And our whole idea is for us to be visible to the public so that someone entering from southbound would see the sign and know where it's at. Someone coming in from the north on 87 would also know where it's at, and also on 306 back towards Foster Road. Now, there's a commercial zone there, I understand, for the other church down below us. There is also a small residential area just adjacent to us. And then a cemetery. And I don't see them putting up any signs to advertise the cemetery. There's also a junk dealer or car dealer, junk car dealer down below us. And I don't see him putting any signs up either. I know that, yes, it probably would set a precedent, but we're asking your indulgence in this as far as being able to put up the sign which was generously donated, as well as the work it's going to take to put it up.
Let me ask you something. Would you object to that being zoned commercial?
Well,
With the church?
we had not even considered the rezoning, and I believe part of it was because of the, once it's rezoned in commercial, doesn't that change the tax situation?
We can't speak for the tax office, but generally speaking, I've been with the city for a little over 2 years. I've never once talked to the tax office about what something is zoned. They generally drive by, or they have a system and figure out, what's on the property and tax it based off of that, but they've never contacted us to figure out what a property is zoned for the taxes.
I think it would be worth investigating, definitely, but the way I understand the tax law is as long as the church area that we're talking about is actively enforced, then it's still tax exempt. Now, if you have an area of the church that you're not using regularly, like a vacant lot that you're not using for parking or a playground or anything of this nature, then it could be taxed differently. But as long as you're actively using that area, it should be taxed.
Okay.
That remains
The lady who did most of the work on this actually had to work today and could not be here. So I'm kind of winging it based on what she's told me. And she was saying that there would be some future expenses based on the water district and the tax, and you've addressed the tax issue. I'm not sure exactly what it would involve, but from what she tells me, when she researched it, was that in the long run, rezoning would cost the church over a long period of time.
One of the things that significantly raises a flag in my mind is drivers taking their eyes off the road for 11 seconds to read a scrolling sign. I mean, I find LED scrolling signs atrocious to begin with for the landscape, but any driver in a major thoroughfare like that taking their eyes off the road for that length of time is frightening.
Yes, it is, and texting and things like that are the same. It's the same by the same token. I drive along 306 a lot. Actually, I drive a lot in the city because I'm in a home health organization. And I know that I read the scrolling signs, but it does not take me all that long to glance up and see a sign. And now, if you've got a sign that's scrolling a long message, yes, that would be detrimental to a driver. We're talking about simple phrases, Course in Miracles, simple
Right.
phrases.
But we don't have any way to regulate that. So once you're allowed to put an LED sign up, then you have the option of putting up any type of sign you want. So, I mean, we may discuss that now, but things may change and your board may change, or your congregation may change, and you put up a different type of sign. So we don't have any way to govern that. My other thought is, how large is your congregation?
Let me check that.
Sunday service is about 50 people.
Sunday services are about 50 people.
So you have the ability to get a group together to do some lot clearing and some tree trimming and that type of thing to clear your setback to make your current sign visible.
Now, I surely think that it would take a professional to do what needs to be done, because we're talking about taking the tops off of the trees.
No, I'm talking about clearing the right-of-way back, taking your tree line back to where the front of your lot is more visible. I'm not talking
This
about-
is West Texas. We really are careful with our trees in West Texas.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about clearing your right-of-way on the front of the lot. I mean, there's plenty of trees there. You could take off about 2 rows of trees and make that sign visible.
Actually, there are more trees down below that that probably would affect the visibility of the sign, even if we took out some of ours. And again, our congregation is made up of a lot of different ages, and many of the people that are in the congregation would not be able to do that kind of work. So it would take probably professionals to cut back those trees.
May I say something about this? You know, several years ago when this was brought up before, and I'd like just to read this to y'all. Mr. Ben Jenkins, one of our board members, stated that he was inclined to approve the request variance because this is basically a commercial entity in a residential area. Furthermore, the fact that San Angelo's comprehensive plan identifies the site as suitable for commercial use and zoning compliance with sign limitations and suitable for residential districts. And anyway, they discussed it for a while, but I think that's the reason that they allowed what they've got there. Now, I was on the board a few years ago on the Southgate Church of Christ, where we allowed a larger sign due to the fact that it was a long ways off the road. And people do go to churches to find for funerals that aren't regular members, maybe for children's events, and they're out there looking for it. And this is probably 300 feet or 100 yards or so off of the highway. And it's different than the ones down the road a little bit that are close to the road.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got to say about that.
Any other?
One of the things that I wanted to mention as far as what he was saying is that recently we had a wedding, and the people, several of the guests came at the end of the ceremony because they were looking for the church. They didn't see the sign that is presently there, and we decided that if we have this sign visible and it has Solis Wedding, that's all you need to know, then they would have an idea of where this would occur. We do have memorial services there, and again, if they're having trouble, especially if they're coming from out of town.
I would say that'd be up to the bride and groom to better map their event space.
Okay, Ms. Johnson.
I would like to also point out that it's 35 miles per hour on that frontage road, so there is visibility from that point. However, one is traveling 65 miles or more, depending on their feet.
When you're coasting.
Going north and south. So I'm not debating that a scrolling sign wouldn't be visible. Would it be legible? That was one of the big discussions in the paper. And I've already spoken with someone who's sort of a sign expert, and they didn't feel that 2 feet high sign would be meeting your needs at that time. Maybe a larger one would. However, our discussion again is adding area regardless of what is on there, and also the height. So again, that's kind of what's before you. Again, visibility, depending on where you're at on the highway, where you're at on the frontage road, is also a big issue here. So I think those are the main things that are under consideration today.
All right. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak for?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Janie Kelly. I am the minister at Unity Church of Christianity here in San Angelo. We are a relatively small congregation currently, wishing to grow. And what we are doing at this point is looking for better visibility and asking for your help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for? Anyone wish to speak against? Okay. Okay, with that said, any questions, any more comments, questions?
Let me just give a little historical.
Wait a minute.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, would it be possible to table this in order to give them an opportunity to seek the tax laws, et cetera, to rezone it? I would prefer to see it get rezoned. As much as I would like to see the sign variance happen, because I'm all for more visibility and trying to help them out, but I just think it would be a better option would be a zone change.
The better thing to do is make a decision on this request and then let them further research it
Okay.
from there.
Let me say this about that location. The reason that little cemetery is there, that when Ben Franklin got washed away, that's the highest little piece of ground they could find to bury those that they could find. And, you know, it's just the top of a little hill there, and that's where that is. It's a beautiful place. But it is hard to see with the trees growing up in the front. It's not like it's big old steeple sticking up over there. And I've got to agree that if we table this for a month, to where they come back with, you know, they can check into the tax business. We need to help these churches any way we possibly can. And since it is on our vision plan to be commercial, that'd be a likely thing. If we turn them down, it's just cost, and there's no reason to cost people when we don't have to.
Bear in mind too, go ahead.
I personally am not in favor of the sign ordinance adjustment at all. I mean, I am in favor of it being rezoned. You know, I think that's probably the way you need to go. I'm not really in favor of us doing the rezoning.
Exactly.
You know, but I am in favor of considering to have it rezoned, because if we don't, to me, we're setting a precedence of everybody else in that area. And I'm not really for, the sign ordinance is such a touchy situation, and I don't want to see 5 signs out there, but that's what we would have to allow if we allow this.
Bear in mind too, in granting the variance, you know, you'll be giving them all the advantages of basically a commercial property, kind of as Mr. Jenkinson pointed out, but they won't actually bear the burden of a commercial property being residentially zoned. That's certainly something that approving the variance would likely do. It would essentially be a commercial property, and you know, you've made the argument that it kind of is. And if it's going to be, it needs to have the burdens that go with a commercial property too. That's hardly fair and equitable for everyone else that has a commercial property, for this residential property to get all the benefits of a commercial property and not be zoned commercially.
Well, I agree. I mean, they've been directed at least twice that they need to rezone their property, so there's no reason for us to hold the child's hand if they've been told what to do.
Something to bear in mind also is that they are along an ideal corridor to have an off-site sign. They actually qualify to have an off-site sign that can advertise like closer to the exit to where they would be. So that is something I did not mention in my report, however, is something I kind of came across later on, and I apologize for that, but that is an option, and now we can make a kind of a record of that here too.
When you say off-site sign, are you referring to the wayfinding signs, or?
No, for example, they could use a sign on another freestanding sign on another property. They can enter agreement with somebody, or something to that effect, maybe trade services, or however they want to work that out,
Right.
to, you know, like the name of their church, you know, this exit, something like that. And
Right.
That's an idea.
But again, if you did something like that, you would have to work out an agreement, probably a financial agreement, probably on a monthly basis. What we're trying to do is avoid as much extra expense as we possibly can. As I said, we live on a strict budget, and we've managed to survive for a number of years, but we would like to grow, and that's why what the sign would make possible.
Well,
Okay,
but
thank
you've had this sign donated, so maybe the board needs to make a little effort and see if you can find somebody that's willing to donate a small tract of, I mean, you know, how big is the signpost? They would be willing to donate that. I'm going to make a motion we deny the request.
Okay? Have a motion to deny. Do I have a second? Okay, motion fails.
Okay, I'd like to postpone this for 1 month.
You
Is
just
that
said
enough?
you didn't want to.
Huh?
You just said you didn't want to postpone it.
No, I just said I do want to postpone it. for
Right,
1
but
month.
previously you said you didn't want to table it.
You misunderstood me.
Oh, okay.
I think. But and look into the possibility of it being changed to commercial. And frankly, let me say this: there are reasons for an exception in my mind because of the distance from the highway to have a larger sign, at least say 50% larger than the ordinary residential sign. And this is commercial. The property is being used as if it were commercial.
But there's nothing in this request that's we're asking for a rezoning. What we're looking at is a sign variance.
Right.
If there's going to be rezoning, then
Right, but if it comes
we
back
need
to
to
it-
address this
if they-
request and then let them look into rezoning. We don't have anything in front of us related to rezoning.
Wait
So
a
we need to
minute.
make a decision on what's in front of us.
Well, if we make the decision to wait a month, then it comes back the same way, then we can do it then.
So if they come back and say they can't afford to rezone because it's going to increase their taxes, is that going to change your mind on the size of their sign? That's my question.
Bear in
'Cause-
mind too, and with the variance, not to interrupt, sorry about that,
Go
but
ahead.
with the cost of, how much something is or isn't gonna cost in the variance process isn't something the board,
Right.
is legally
Because
allowed
I'm
to
not worried
consider.
about that so much.
Right.
Truly, it's a matter of, I think they need a larger sign, and I'm just figuring out ways to do it.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, let's make it.
I agree that they need a larger sign, but I also agree that if we deny this, then they do come back with a request to rezone.
Thank you. That's
What
exactly.
is wrong with us requesting
Staff do it.
that they look into rezoning like we did previously with someone else, so that we can start the ball rolling for them?
I don't understand
Absolutely.
why are you going to waste
Right.
staff's time? It's.
Well, it's not wasting staff's time. I mean,
They're going to do it anyway.
It-
Whether,
it-
I don't think it's wasting staff's time.
The master plan shows this as a commercial property. There's no reason to put this back in staff's lap. These guys are asking for a sign variance in a ranch and estate. We deny that. If they want their larger sign, then they come to us with a request to rezone, which obviously in the master plan is already set to be commercial.
That's
Therefore, they
probably
get
gonna pass.
rezoned, they get their sign, and we're done. We've followed the letter of the process.
I would say it would give me another 30 days to think about this as well. Yeah, it may change my mind. If they come back and they have tax burdens or whatever it is, it
It's a
could change my
church. What
mind.
tax
Didn't they
burdens
come
would they
back
have?
with
I would like to research, I'd like to have a chance to research that and
Churches don't
find
pay
out.
tax-
Put that in a
Taxes.
motion, Mark.
Yeah, I'll put that in a motion that we table it for 30 days.
Okay, we have
I'll
a motion to take.
I'll second
We
that
have a
motion.
second. All in favor? Show of hands. Okay. Motion's all opposed? 4-2, so motion carries. Will be tabled. Okay. Next we have,
Can we recess, please?
yes, we'll take about a 10-minute recess, please. We're back at 10:31. Comprehensive plan. As remanded to Planning Commission by the City Council regarding the following amendment previously approved by the Planning Commission.
All right, those of you, good morning again, Jeff Hintz, interim senior planner with the city. Those of you who were on planning commission last month, apologies to Mark and Terry, you may or may not know a little bit about this one, but at that meeting, the planning commission did direct us to table this for longer and give the commission a chance to tour the area and things of that nature. The reason it's back for you today isn't because staff wasn't listening, but because there's an applicant, the very next item on your agenda is a zone change that necessitates this amendment going through for the zone change to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Notification is not required for this particular request, and Ms. Jones read the caption, so I'll skip this slide. This is how the current vision plan section of the comprehensive plan looks today at this moment in time, and has some things generally that are a little inconsistent with what the comprehensive plan is really seeking. We've got industrial areas, buffered only with, ranch and estate. One of the goals of the comprehensive plan is that it seeks to buffer industrial and commercial areas, the more intensive ones, from neighborhood type development. It also has a few things that aren't necessarily placed in the most logical fashion. We've got a neighborhood center placed in between two industrial areas in a ranch and estate zone. There's really not a neighborhood in this area to serve. So that's just the general premise. What kind of kicked this off for staff is whenever an area is annexed, we will take a look at the thoroughfare plan and the vision plan of the area and see if it still matches. Generally speaking, we'll also try to take a look at the vision plan section of the comprehensive plan every few years as well to see if it's really developed in a manner that's consistent and good with what the comprehensive plan is seeking. There's several amendments we'd proposed in this area. A thoroughfare plan amendment is also a portion of this. As you can see, we've got a collector street running through the northward expansion of where the city landfill would be, and several collector streets running through there. The Planning Commission, MPO, and Council did approve that thoroughfare plan amendment at that time. In terms of your options today, though, one that's not listed on here, certainly tabling it and sending it back to staff or for the commission to investigate further is certainly one. It's not listed, though. In doing so, that would also slow down the next particular project on the agenda is zone change. You may approve this, modify it, or deny it on a property-by-property basis or the entire thing in general. What staff did for this, we did a field survey of the area. Those of you that remember Carrie when she was on planning staff before she went to Michigan did this with me, so it's an older one. It's just some timing and the tabling and going back and forth has resulted in it taking this long. We did discuss originally with engineering, stormwater, water utilities, and MPO, and then did a data entry, land use map, and that type of thing. We took a look at historical land use patterns, an examination of the current vision plan map for strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. And the proposed amendment was reached based upon the data and findings from staff, not just at the planning level, but city staff in general. The area was annexed in 2011, and there's several contrasting land uses. We did a parcel-by-parcel analysis of the northeast region of town, and this is really going to set up a proactive approach that this commission and staff would like to take instead of a reactive approach where we get complaints in and there's all this noise and I'm living right here, what am I going to do? By doing these amendments in this order before a lot of things get carried away out there, we can avoid a lot of these issues. So this is what was originally proposed and approved by the Planning Commission back in March of this year and sent to City Council. City Council had some discussion about this particular property here, highlighted in red where I'm going with the cursor, which is the subject of the zone change shortly after this presentation. And then this property here, there was some discussion at the council level that they'd like to see a little more industrial usage in that area. Going along those lines, we'd taken a look at it as well. Certainly, the comprehensive plan does seek to kind of diversify in industrial areas and adding the ability for commercial, which is why we'd place the commercial zones here, along the highways and more major corridors to maybe diversify this industrial region. Certainly folks in the industrial field will be looking to do commercial opportunities at one point. We could also see the need for industrial as well, and this is a pretty isolated area of the community. So taking all that into consideration, this is what a vision plan would look like following council's directive. In their opinion at the meeting back in April when this was heard, to make this industrial and this property industrial as well with no other changes. With that, I'll certainly be happy to address any questions or concerns that this commission has had, but this is what we would propose and would also work with the zone change coming up after this.
When we originally talked about that, Jeff, that was design commercial, didn't it affect somebody that was currently there? I mean, it may be another issue I'm talking about.
Yeah, this tract here across from the landfill, there's a some type of bar or adult kind of club that was out there and is perhaps closed now. It's currently zoned ranch and estate by default. Whenever it's annexed in, it comes in as the lowest intensity zoning, and then it comes to this commission as, well, not the case here for the next one, but it comes in as the lowest intensity zoning for this commission and staff and council to figure out what the best use of that property is going to be. At this time, it's vacant. It's currently not being used. When it was annexed, I believe it was vacant as well, so it would have to conform to the ranch and estate. So at this time, there's no business there, but certainly kind of where the B and the A for Ballinger is where the Martifer, the plant is. They have the wind turbines and that type of thing. This commission has heard several, requests, at the beginning of this year as a result of this annexation to zone properties to light or heavy manufacturing in this general area. There is a house. There's a house and several other ones up here. Those uses are allowed to continue despite the vision plan. It's just if they ever come in to get a zone change from ranch and estate to something legally, we're required to consider an industrial type usage for any zone change in the area.
Okay. What about down low where that red
This
part
one
is?
here is currently vacant. There's Mr. Mueller is here, can certainly speak to what his plans were or might be for the property, and can do so during the zone change process as well. The red one is currently zoned general commercial and has remained undeveloped. It was annexed around 1997, I believe, and was zoned general commercial at that time. You'll find the blue here and here. We've got some schools that we just changed. The lighter blue is campus or institutional. So this would be Howard College. They've recently rezoned their property through the Planning Commission to a planned development. This would encompass McGill Elementary. They're not doing a zone change certainly, but institutional would certainly fit in with what a school is and what's on the ground right now. There was some discussion at the council level when we were doing these to more envision a little bit for more of what's there and be a little less. We had one that was a little bit more of a drastic change than the council had wanted. There was a kind of an urgency on their point to envision a bit for more of what's there and try to work out to the best going forward for future land uses to protect all property owners, both residential and commercial. There is envisioned neighborhoods. The comprehensive plan does speak to using thoroughfares. In this case, Paul Ann Boulevard, it does speak to using thoroughfares as a buffer from industrial uses, so that would be consistent with that goal. Not that there is a mobile home park in this area as well, not that they're any less of a residential zoning district than an RS1 would be, but they still deserve, that type of protection as well. So we found that it would still be, it's not ideal having industrial right next to it, but given, kind of the hand that we were dealt in terms of what's actually out there and what the future land uses are probably going to be in this area, that right-of-way is approximately 80 feet across, so that'll have to be the buffer for now. In the future, certainly, as we re-examine the comprehensive plan in another 5 to 10 years, maybe some different changes to commercial will be necessary out there. But right now, industrial seems to be the flavor of the day, and we've identified this through the annexation as a pretty good spot for industrial.
May I ask you something? How strong? I know that, like you used the term "flavor of the day" just a second ago. That's kind of the way I look at this. Can it be? It can be changed by the owners that own the land, can it? Not, I mean.
Correct. An owner could come in and say they own this property here and say, I want to get general commercial zoning out there. We'd have to look at it and say, well, it's not really consistent with the vision plan. It's calling for industrial type usage out there. They could direct staff to reevaluate the area, but based upon the most recent study we've done here in the last year, it's really an industrial area at this time. We see it as continuing as an industrial area given the freight traffic and development along North Bell Street. We've got several warehousing, freight movement, truck repair type businesses that service certainly industrial uses. In terms of isolation from areas, this is the existing neighborhood here. It's about a half a mile to a lot of the zone changes we've done recently
Right,
to
but
the higher intensity.
it's not truly written in stone. It's more or less written on paper. It
Correct.
can be changed.
Yeah, it can be changed with criteria and data that back it up. We won't just change it on a whim because it's the flavor of the day, like I said. But if there's data to support it, we'll certainly recommend any change that the data leads us to.
I thought this was the way we should have had it to begin with, but that's.
Looks okay.
Do we have any questions? All right, thank you, Jeff.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Do we have anyone to wish to speak for? Yes, sir, come on up.
Yeah.
My name is Harold Muller, and I'm the owner of the Chaparral Commercial Center, which is where the UPS area is. It's been my last 30 years of development. Anyway, I'd like to see this area go forward as industrial. A question I have is, why isn't Martyr Hirschfield facility, a 50-acre plot, why isn't it noted on this map as being industrial? It doesn't even show.
It's on there as industrial north of, I'll mouse over it for you.
See, it's right here where Ballinger.
Yeah, it's right in here, and it's north of it.
That's one of the biggest industries you have, but it doesn't
Yeah.
show.
No, it's industrial on there. It's north of.
But
north of
it
Bowling.
doesn't show as red on there.
No, the gray is industrial. The red is commercial.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Anyway, also, this Pauline Street, you're going to be paving it very shortly, I think, the lower end of it, which I'll get there eventually. Here we go.
There you
Right
go.
there.
That's the lower end of it. You're fixing to pave it, and I'd like to see it paved all the way. Well, obviously, I'm not used to computers.
Neither are we.
I'm totally illiterate. totally illiterate. I've lost it again. Anyway, Paul Gregory, who developed this whole area, he and I spent countless hours. This is all pasture. And I'd come over and visit with him. I lived in Ballinger at the time. I developed the Muller Steel Company there. That was my lifetime's work. I retired and came here. Anyway, he had very expensive planners plan this area out, and most of it has come to fruition, but part of it has not. But this Pauline was a very busy street, even back then. And it got to washing from rainfall and so forth, and no upkeep. And then the city put a sewer across alongside the new Ballinger Highway. And when they did that, they just shut the thing down. But anyway, I've had countless people come to me over at the Chaparral commercial area around the UPS. They say, how do we get to this mortar plant? We can see it, but we can't get there. I said, well, there's 5 miles to it, which it is. It's 5 miles to go on out to where the Bront Highway is, and then on the old Ballinger Highway, you can go that way. Or you can go downtown to Bell Street. It's 5 miles that way. Where if you just continue this Pauline, you'd only have 8/10 of a mile. That's a lot of difference. Anyway, that's all I got for this.
Thank you,
I'll
Mr.
Be back
Mueller.
shortly.
Anyone else wish to speak for? Anyone wish to speak against? Okay, any other questions?
No.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Well, I move that we accept the changes in the vision plan.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please show of hands. Okay, motion passes. Okay. The next one is the request for zone change presented by Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. A request for approval of a zone change from general commercial CG to light manufacturing ML to specifically allow for uses found in section 310 of the zoning ordinance on the following properties. First of all, I want to point out this is Z1322, M&H Muller, the gentleman that was just here. 3172 McGill Boulevard and 3733 North US Highway 67, collectively occupying both a 5.131 acre tract and a 55.1830 acre tract located west of North US Highway 67, north of Pauline Boulevard, and east of Smith Boulevard, more specifically occupying 5.131 acres of the J. Pointavant Survey 1113, Abstract 4873, and 55.1830 0 acres of the J. Fenner Survey 0001, abstract 4985 in northeast San Angelo. I got through it, by golly. 10 notifications were sent, 1 was returned in favor, and I'm going to tell you, there are no comments on it, so if you would like to just take
Take your word for
you
it.
can either take my word or I will be happy to pass it to you, but there we go. Thank you, Mr. Hintz. Yes. Okay, and as you can see, it's a considerable amount of property that is requesting a zone change here. There are actually 2 parcels. This was the smaller here in the southwest. And then we also have easy access to US Highway 67 here to the east. And if Paul Ann does go through, which is proposed to now, thank you very much, Old Ballinger Highway isn't that far away also to be accessible to this property. Okay, as we see again, it's a large tract of land. We have the John Deere business here, and then this is a tract that's coming up soon for a zone change right after me, I believe. And then here's your Chaparral Center. Thank you very much. Right here we have a vacant property that is zone ML as well right now, and it sort of serves a buffer between up here where we have, well, way back up in here we have that manufactured home subdivision, or actually that is a planned development and it has manufactured homes on it. So it's quite a bit of distance between the property that we're looking to rezone and the neighborhood. So, and Howard College again being down southwest here. There we have an aerial that's undeveloped land right there. It's across from the animal shelter. And our commercial is now changing to industrial. Thank you very much. And the green represents the letter that you just got that was in favor of this request. Okay, so here's businesses looking north of the subject property. We have the John Deere right here in the background. As you see, kind of an industrial nature to the area. And this is the property itself. We're looking west across North US Highway 67. Very, very large tract of land. And looking south from subject property towards Howard College. And that's that animal shelter across North US Highway 67. So planning staff recommends approving this zone change, and now that we have a vision plan amendment, that helps a lot here. So the criteria for approval, similar to a sign variance, but a little bit different. Whether or not it's compatible with plans and policies, consistent with the zoning ordinance, compatible with the surrounding area, whether changed conditions would require an amendment, the effects of on the natural environment, whether or not it meets a community need, and is consistent with development patterns. So with the vision plan amendment, which just happened, the zone change would be consistent with area development. The comp plan seeks to localize locally undesirable land uses, which we call LULUs, away from residential areas, which I illustrated that it does. So the request is compatible with the area in this respect. And aside from that vision plan amendment at the time, no other change is really needed. So the environment will change with any development here, whether or not it was commercial, whether or not it's light manufacturing being a step below heavy manufacturing, as I discussed in my report. Light manufacturing businesses attract industry just as commercial would, so either way, but these are industrially related industries, so traffic would not be as intense as commercial. The zone change would not adversely affect conditions of the surrounding area. Again, it's more compatible. And continued light manufacturing zoning meets a community need. It has a potential for bringing industrial businesses and jobs to the area. And also the city needs industrial clusters focused near major thoroughfares and railways, which we saw by Old Ballinger highway, and away from residential and more intensive commercial activities for safety reasons. So keep them away from the major roads within the city, of course. And again, this is one of our quickest developing industrial nodes in the community, and we would just like to see that zone change go through here. Are there any questions?
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do we have anyone that would like to speak for?
Again, I'm Harold Muller. I own this property, and I'm very much for it. I did have a vision for a while of making this a retail area, but due to highway changes and the street being blocked behind Howard College, it killed that one. So I need to go back to commercial. Do I need to repeat myself?
No.
Okay, good. Anyway, I'm very much in favor of it, but I have a question. On all the communications so far, it's showing an address of 3172 McGill Avenue. McGill Avenue is the street parallel to Paul Ann. It's about a half a mile on southeast. It does not touch our property anywhere. And upon my examination, I find that address is part of this women's detention center that's on McGill. And I have nothing to do with it whatsoever, nothing.
Okay.
But go ahead.
I did approach our 911 addressing coordinator, and she informed me that that was the address for that. You can totally come in and talk to her, and maybe you can see about changing the address. It didn't make sense to her as well, but that's what our maps show. So I apologize for that confusion right there, and I did speak to Mr. Rourke about this as well, and it didn't make sense at all, but that is what we have on our maps, is the address for that one little triangular portion in the southwest. And again, yes, do come in and we can remedy that situation.
Right in the center of that detention area.
But there's good legal description
I don't
on
need to
this.
be there. Anyway, if you could get it off my neck, I'd appreciate it. Anyway, anybody got any questions for me?
Mr. Muir, it doesn't have anything to do with it, really. I'm just kind of curious, what, since you trashed that area of doing because of the streets and highway deal, what are you planning on doing with that property?
As you can see, I'm almost 86. I'm trying to slow down. So I don't care to build any more buildings. However, my stepson, who has taken over a lot of my duties and so forth, and he's a great help to me. He'll be here shortly. He may elect to put up a building or two or three or four and lease them or sell it or whatever, see. But it needs to go back to industrial light manufacturing, because the vision I had for retail, it just didn't pan out. I had a commitment from a hotel, a commitment from a bank, some very good interest for grocery stores and so forth, but with the street changes and highway changes, that's it.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Muir? Thank you, sir. All right, well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your time and consideration, and thank you for your presentation. I'll tell you, you got me beat.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Do everybody else in favor? I mean, is his son-in-law going to talk?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just cut that right off then. Anyone else like to speak for? Anyone like to speak against? Okay, now do we have?
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the project, or the change, I'm sorry.
All righty. Second. Okay. We have a motion made and a second. All in favor, please show your hands. Okay. No opposed, so motion carries. All righty. Next, we have a Earl and Michelle Weber, C13-23.
Alrighty. Yeah, this is Z13-23. It's a request for a zone change from ranch and estate to light manufacturing to allow for industrial uses as allowed in Section 310 of the zoning ordinance on the following property: 3862 Tractor Trail, located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Tractor Trail and Porter Henderson Drive, more specifically occupying the Paul Gregory Addition, Section 2, 5.33 acres of Tract J and 0.310 acres of Smith Boulevard in Northeast Angelo. Of the 6 notifications that were sent, we did get one in favor, the same guy from Roxanne's case there.
At least he responds.
Yes, absolutely. And so the subject property is located in Northeast San Angelo, kind of deemed after the recess here, northeast part of town. We have the city limits, which measures roughly a half mile away to the north and east there. The subject property is zoned for ranch and estate, as well as properties to the south. There's a couple properties to the south also zoned for ranch and estate. We have MH zoning to the north and light manufacturing to the south there. I mean to the west or east, sorry. And what the property currently is occupied by a warehouse building here, but more than 3/4 of the lot is vacant open space. Pretty isolated area in town here. The vision plan does call for industrial in the area. Looking west along Porter Henderson Drive, you see what basically is the remnants of Porter Henderson Drive. It becomes unimproved south of the intersection with Tractor Trail, and so it's roughly a dirt road. Looking east along Porter Henderson Drive, you have some accessory structures from the Chaparral Commercial Center to the west, to the right, my right, and then to the left is the subject property. This is a vantage of the subject property, the building that occupies the lot there. And looking north along Tractor Trail, it's a pretty isolated area. Again, to the east, to my right, there's the subject property and the building that occupies the lot. Looking north is, on the left is the Chaparral Center, and then we have John Deere, that implement building there. And staff is recommending approval of the requested zone change. Here are the criteria applications Roxanne mentioned. Compatible with plans and policies, i.e. the thoroughfare plan or the vision plan, consistent with the zoning ordinance, compatible with surrounding uses in the area, the change conditions, the differences of what are allowable uses in a light manufacturing zone versus a ranch and estate zone, affecting the natural environment, community need, and whether or not the proposal represents logical or orderly development. And on our recommendation, we do feel that the proposed request is consistent with the vision plan, which calls for industrial in the area. Industrial does seek to gather or consolidate intensive hazardous uses in confined, isolated areas in the city. We looked at the lot size for the property, which is roughly 5 acres, pretty sizable. The average lot size in the area is roughly 7 acres, so most of the lots in this area is pretty large. The tract north of the site is 47 acres, so it gives you a sense of the mass variations of lots and such. And the proximity to a major thoroughfare, as referenced in the previous maps, this property measures roughly 800 feet west of US 67. This proposed zoning does represent underutilized zoning for the city. ML is not well dispersed throughout. It's not prevalent in the city. And the proposed request to light manufacturing will provide diversity in land uses and also create an environment to bring businesses that could contribute to the city's tax base and supply the need for skilled labor, which would benefit area institutions. And last of all, this request does represent logical and orderly development. I am a pretty visual type of guy, so I did provide a map here showing the existing ML zoning in the area. So we have the Chaparral Commercial Center, which takes this entire block here, and was recently rezoned from ranch and estate to light manufacturing about a couple months ago. We have just large swath of ML zoning to the east. There's ML zoning further down to the south. Roxanne's area that she just presented on currently stands as general commercial. It has to go before City Council for approval. That may become light manufacturing as well. And then we have some light manufacturing as well to the southeast or southwest there. Many of the green that you see here, this is newly annexed area in the city limits, much of which was annexed in 2011. So these properties have never been subjected to rezoning. If they do, they may go for industrial as well, since the vision plan does call for industrial in the area. And if you have any questions, I could take those at this time.
Any questions? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone here that would like to speak for?
Hi, my name is Earl Weber, and I own this spot. I think it's just logical to make it manufacturing. Brings a better customer base for us, bring income into the city. I just think it's a logical deal, and I hope it's the flavor of the day for y'all to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else like to speak for? Yes, sir.
This is my last time up here.
We enjoy you.
I'm very much for it being industrial. Just a sideline, that was my first building, my first large metal building I built 65 years ago at Ballinger. And it's, I put the Farmall tractor dealership in there, the International tractor dealership in there. And then I used it for springboard. I built the commercial area all around that area. And right now the John Deere people, our last tenant was the John Deere people. And now the Muller Supply Company, or not Muller Supply Company, but Muller Steel, or they call it Muller Steel. They absorbed it, so. But just a history about it. 65 years ago, that was my first building.
Wow.
That was the first one, eh?
First one.
First Mueller building.
Right. And went from there. Oh, I think this boy will do the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone would like to speak against? Okay, with that said, need a motion?
Make a motion, we approve.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
2
We all
seconds,
second.
Miss
We all
Jackson.
second
Had it both sides. Okay, all in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, motion carries. Y'all are good to go. Great. Okay. Next one is the discussion and possible action to amend portions of the vision plan component of 2009 update to the San Angelo Comprehensive Plan is remanded to Plan Commission and City Council regarding the following amendment previously approved by the Planning Commission.
This one is one that had gone to Planning Commission last month after it was remanded by City Council, and a motion was made and approved to have staff come back with something that's a little less drastic, I guess, was the quick summary. So with that, this is what the vision plan had originally stated. Back when the whole process began, we had in the Grand Canal area running through here, we had just industrial right adjacent to neighborhoods, which the argument has been made, well, the industrial was there first and they had, built out there afterwards, but we're still, as a commission and as staff, obligated to, find the highest and best uses of properties, and certainly industrial directly adjacent to neighborhoods would not be one in our findings. Regarding what you may do with this, of course you may table and give back to us again if you'd like to, which isn't listed here, but you can approve, modify vision categories by a property basis, or deny the proposed vision plan amendment. Again, with the process, I'd covered that on the last one, so I'll skip through these ones, but the same process was taken when staff had looked at this area. We do recommend approving the proposed amendment. This is what the vision plan says now. As previously was discussed, Mr. Burnett had a project that was going in on this lot 17B here. With that amendment, council did kind of draw the dividing line in this sense, and did envision these areas up here as being a better fit for some commercial development, as had staff and the Planning Commission. However, the rest was remanded back to this commission. With that, this is what was originally proposed and had been remanded. The parts that were approved are certainly on there now. So we have the rest is all industrial at this time. Using neighborhoods to buffer industrial, which seems kind of backwards. Not sure how it got to be that way in the first point, but that's another story for another day. Across the highway, too, in terms of the discussion at council, there was this urge to, just as a general summary, to kind of envision for a little more of what's out there. So given that this was all fields at this time and it's outside of the city limits, we went ahead and took away the strip of commercial, which isn't really sustainable, doing long strips of commercial, as we can see on Chadbourne and North Chadbourne and North Bryant. There's a lot of vacant properties there. So we've kind of isolated the commercial and industrial to the one side of the highway, preserving the rural type development east of the highway. This is the thoroughfare plan of the area. You can see we do have a major collector and a minor collector here, as well as a major arterial being the freeway in this case. Basis for our recommendation, it seems kind of self-explanatory, but industrial uses directly adjacent to neighborhoods generally aren't good, despite the fact that people that built houses out there knew what they were getting into. The land uses are really at opposite ends of the spectrum, as a detached single-family residence and a steel manufacturing plant, or a box plant in one case. We've sought to diversify the area in terms of, and also at the same time protecting the neighborhood moving forward, calling for a little bit lower intensity uses going forward. Again, people don't have to come in and rezone the property, but as they do, they are required to follow the comprehensive plan. So that being said, this is a little bit drastic than going from light manufacturing down to what a neighborhood center would be. Some commercial areas would allow for more general retailing, potentially heavy commercial, given the right set of circumstances as deemed by this commission. And then buffering the industrial areas with transitional areas, being in the sense of a transitional from residential being RS1 into industrial areas. That could be maybe general commercial zoning, neighborhood commercial zoning, office commercial zoning, maybe some type of mixed-use project where someone would do some townhouses. That would certainly fit in with the transitional as well, or zero lot line, that type of thing. Additionally, we found that buffering these industrial areas away from the neighborhood is certainly something that's at the top of the goals of the comprehensive plan. So that's why it's been drawn up this way. In terms of properties that may not necessarily work with the vision at this time right now, the box plant is probably the glaring one. They do actually manufacture boxes, and that's fine. It's zoned light manufacturing. It can stay that way forever, but if that ever goes vacant, maybe someone comes in there and runs a warehouse and does it as general commercial zoning with a conditional use, or doesn't change the zoning at all. But and then the other glaring one would be the steel manufacturing plant is on this one. It is zoned light manufacturing at this time, so if they don't come in for a zone change, nothing happens. There's a lot of discussion about that at the council level, but those are really the glaring ones that wouldn't right now fit with this vision. Otherwise, the rest of it is zoned in a similar fashion. And in addition, the rest of the area is zoned heavy commercial. It allows the folks in this area here maybe to ramp up their production, maybe to an industrial type usage, seeing it that they are buffered away from the neighborhoods by these other types of uses. We've also kept this as well. The Grand Canal, the drainage canal, is federal property, likely will never be built on. We'd like to go ahead and add that as open space to the map because there really is no, zoning designation that fits with a drainage canal. But in terms of what's actually there and what it's going to be, open space is probably the vision designation that fits that best. And if there's any questions, I'll go ahead and try to point you in the right direction or answer them as best as I can.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like your first plan better. The one from 2013. Grand Canal Area Vision.
This one?
I think they're all labeled the same.
Yeah, I have village in the wrong direction with that. I apologize.
Okay, the one that has the box plant is industrial.
This is the current one right now.
there. Okay, of course, with the red across the road back to rural, maybe I realized somebody came in and built a house right in the middle of this industrial area.
Yeah, there is a house right in this area.
But they also did some work there. I don't know why. But I can see that being in gray all the way over to those warehouses, right to the there. Yeah, I noticed they haven't built out their warehouse space down there. But it bothers me that the box manufacturing, which is going great guns right now, 24 hours a day building boxes, is any form of residential use or even a commercial. This thing was designed 25 years ago, and then they built some houses in there. It's kind of a funny way to do it. But
This is the current though, right?
Yeah, this is what it says right now. So if you're good with this and want us to walk away from it, there's no cases that are actually pending in this area. Mr. Burnett, his went through council and was approved. You could direct us that you're good with it the way that it is. We can walk away from it. It'll go into the archives.
It's just that I know that plant there for the box making place, several $1 million right there, and we can't call it a neighborhood center. And the land right next to it, the lot right next to it, they bought for possible expansion.
Right.
And this wouldn't necessarily stop their expansion. The whole property is still zoned light manufacturing, but in terms of ideal situations, the comprehensive plan, bear in mind too, is a 25 to 50-year document as well. So it doesn't mean that we certainly don't want the box plant to go out of business, but there'll become a time when it's maybe not the best location depending upon how the other land uses. No one can see the future, but depending upon how this area changes, some of these may want to go, and industrial may not actually be the right fit for here. For the time being, for the next several years, we feel industrial. This is definitely a good spot for industrial in these areas, given that it's buffered from the neighborhood. But moving forward, as the city continues to annex property moving southward, this may not be an industrial hub anymore. Do we really want to say that we're good with having industrial right next to a neighborhood? And if we're good with that,
I think
we'll go from there.
They put their neighborhood right next to industrial, and that means what really happened there. I just think we need to call it what it is, or closer to what it is.
Yeah, I liked where it was.
So this is the proposed change?
This is the proposal based upon the motion from last month to kind of meet in the middle of what was originally presented and then remanded.
The box plant showing neighborhood center, and you're showing this commercial there.
Oh, did I not? Did the next one not go through?
No.
Oh, you guys didn't get this? This is the first time you've seen it? I'm
did
sorry.
show the neighborhood center, but that's
See, mine's showing the neighborhood center.
All right, I'm sorry. I omitted. There is another. That's the last page on there. I may have.
Well, there is the last page, but there's no coloration to it.
Okay. No, I didn't. That didn't get included. I apologize. This is the first time you've seen this.
What
then.
you did across the highways proper.
Yeah, the neighborhood center one you referred to is the original one. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, the original one's in here.
Yeah, I didn't include this updated kind of compromise. My apologies for that. I wonder why you look so surprised.
I'm agreeable to this. I'm not agreeable to the neighborhood center.
Right.
Well, you know, the fella came in here and bought that place from another box company. And, you know, he thought he's buying industrial. It's zoned that way, light industrial.
They're not doing anything to the box plant, so we're just changing the vision plan. So if ever the box plant
Yeah, but you're seeing spots if you don't see things as the way they are. I mean, that's a problem. It's not the way it is.
No, they're trying to do a proper buffer on here to protect the homes as well as the commercial and industrial. They're trying to make it
Doesn't really affect
cohesive.
the box plant.
It
No,
doesn't
this
affect
is
the
a
box
good-
plant at all.
If the box plant comes into you and says, Planning Commission, we'd like to get a zone change. We're zoned light manufacturing now, and we think we need to get heavy manufacturing. It would be inconsistent with this vision of commercial, but that being said, heavy manufacturing is really reserved for the most intense uses, and you know, I won't speak for the commission, but in terms of staff, I don't think we would recommend introducing given the current vision plan, they could come in and say that to us right now, not that one. Given the current vision plan, they could come to you and say, yeah, we want to get heavy manufacturing. I highly doubt, we'd take a look at it, certainly as any application we get. I highly doubt that staff would recommend, rezoning that to heavy
You
manufacturing.
wouldn't go
but
heavy
that being-
manufacturing because they back up to a subdivision, and you'd have the whole subdivision in here screaming at us, so.
Well, the subdivision came in, the residential came in after this was laid out and going. That's crazy. It's something we want.
Right, but in your
it
good
was
conscience,
outside.
you're not going to put heavy manufacturing next to a neighborhood, who was there first either way, because you're not going to subject the citizens to being downwind of the effects of heavy manufacturing, so it wouldn't happen to begin with.
No.
So,
Jeff, I have a question for you.
Okay.
The areas right now that are the brownish color, is that vacant land that nothing is on currently?
Yeah, currently this one is vacant. When this
That's next to
this
that one that
yeah,
just
and then
was
when this gentleman came in, he'd proposed maybe doing some self-service warehouses there. It's currently zoned office warehouse, so any use that's
Yeah.
allowed in that district would work.
Okay.
But that's the use that he is thrown out there. Whether it happens or not, we'll see. But the properties back here are currently this one. There's a house on it right now that Mr. Winnet alluded to. There's a vacant property or warehouse type building in this area, and then the back, this parcel here is vacant to my knowledge.
Okay.
There is this publicly dedicated cul-de-sac in this area here. It's not improved, but it is dedicated as a street, so there's certainly some, it's the only access to this lot back here. So certainly if anyone, wishes to develop it, there'll be some fire code, that's outside of the bounds of this group, but there'll be some fire code requirements which would require it to be paved. But
Okay.
at this time, it's vacant, and that's, likely the reason why, and, staff's finding is that
But
it
that-
has
that
no
cul-
paved access.
Okay.
that cul-de-sac would be a good spot for townhomes or condos or something to that effect.
Except they're huge lots.
They already have
They're
houses on
huge
there, don't
lots,
they?
Yeah.
Yeah, the yellow areas here that are divided out all have houses on them now, and then, back here, certainly that could be a transitional project for, townhomes and office, mixed-use type development would certainly, be an
Well, I can see
option that
that
could
being
serve the neighborhood.
transitional. I can, but I still see the gray in industrial for the two lots that occupy the box company, and maybe where the many warehouses are. Or they're not many warehouses, there's businesses in them.
Yeah, there's a business in there as well. They do some industrial type contracting work back there as well, which would work within commercial. Heavy
Yeah.
commercial would, certainly work for a contractor, and would also limit the ability going forward for any zone change to keeping manufacturing out of this area. 'Cause
Look
the
at
city
this,
limit line runs
a
through
slightly
here.
different way. Let's suppose that you took where there's houses right now and painted it gray for industrial. That's our plan. How
That
do you
wouldn't
think they'd
change
feel about it?
anything.
We could, but in terms of a more, permanence, in terms of the land use in this area, this is a more popular, residential area, or, given the data that we have and we've had access to take a look at. All the lots back here are currently filled with houses with the exception of, I think, this 16K right here.
Yeah.
The reason for that being, if you take a site visit out to there and go to the end, there's a pile of metal scrap that no privacy fence that would be legally constructed is ever going to hide. which, certainly someone could get this zoned heavy commercial and do the exact same thing, but is it something that staff would recommend going forward if someone does that? Probably not, but for the time being, this area was annexed in, and a lot of it was just zoned heavy commercial or light manufacturing, and it's kind of the hand
Jeff,
we're
let me
dealt.
say this to the staff and you. That is a very complicated area out there.
It's not an easy one. I mean, we got dealt a pretty tough hand, and the first one we'd proposed was a little drastic in terms of dropping from light manufacturing to a neighborhood center. But we'd propose this to you as to recommend to council as a compromise that will, knowing the fact that no one has to come in and get a zone change, but in terms of future development of the area as things change, that this will be much better moving forward.
I'm going to make a motion to approve as presented.
Which one?
This one.
This is
what's being presented.
You look like you have a question.
I don't like that one. But
Okay.
then that's not a question. There's so many little variables in each one of these parcels of land.
But this is a vision plan. It can change again. This is just what we're hoping to see pan out in that area. This is not set in stone, and this is the same discussion we have every time we have a vision plan changes.
Right now, we're saying we're good with this. So any of these properties, I think this one's zoned heavy commercial, could come to you and say, yeah, I want to get heavy manufacturing right there. Legally, we'd have to consider it. Would it actually happen? That's up to the commission and council to decide. But is that something we want to happen is the better question, which is what the vision plan is
I think as a
addressing.
responsibility of those homeowners, we need to make an effort to put a buffer in between their properties and the industrial construction behind them.
Can we have a motion on the floor? Do I have a second?
Could I ask another question?
Sure.
Did we actually asked you to go back and revisit the vision plan, right? So this
Yes.
is what you're coming
This
forward
is
with?
based off of
recommending.
Yeah, this is the original one. The motion was to kind of make a compromise. So we'd taken, originally we thought, neighborhood back there would probably be the most ideal. Switched that to commercial. Took away the neighborhood center and switched that back to more of a commercial. So it's less of a step down from the industrial. Really, those were the two kind of areas of concern at this level and at the council level too.
The original one, wasn't that the one that city council
This is the one.
denied,
This is the
saying
one
that it
council
was too
remanded back to you and
drastic?
said was too drastic. So we'd come back
They're not
with
gonna-
But I think it's best in
with
the vision
with this.
to take care of the neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's
Using the
better.
buffer. Let's try to,
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept as presented. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed?
Well, okay.
Well,
No, I'm in favor.
Oh, okay, passes unanimously. Okay, the next thing we have on, does anybody have on the future meeting agenda? The only thing that I want to clarify and make sure is that the item that we tabled today be on the next agenda. Because sometimes I think when we table one, it maybe takes 2 or 3 times to get back, so I want to make sure that one gets back on the.
Yeah, not a problem. We'll have that one on there, as well as there's another vision amendment. If you remember the 28th and Armstrong Street area that the commission had seen, we'll have that one ready for the next planning commission
Awesome.
meeting as well with that, and as well as that sign variance. Those will be the only 2 items I can predict for you. There's a couple other applications that may or may not be coming in, but we'll get to those when we get to them. The cutoff is tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
So if you want to knock on wood for a short meeting, pray for rain. Maybe that'll keep some folks away.
Does anybody else have anything on the future agenda? One thing I want to say before we adjourn is I appreciate and welcome the new members. I appreciate the research y'all have done. You were very knowledgeable today on the planning commission. I think that's great. I think we have a great staff. We've got one more coming next month if it's approved. And I look forward to working with all of y'all. And I think taking a half to 3/4 of a day out of your life to do something special for the city is pretty phenomenal. And so welcome and thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
So do I have a
motion to adjourn?
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn. A second?
That's
Okay, we are adjourned.